Big time potential fight of the night up at the top and a combined record of 18-1. We have Ceerod, Christian Rodriguez, taking on MSP at a Team CIT. It's Cameron Saaiman. And Matt, I know the fans, the real ones out there, you guys are excited about this fight.
I am.
Cameron Saaiman, his last time out, was supposed to take on... Who was it? Oh, Christian Rodriguez! And the fight fell out. Rodriguez couldn't make the walk, so in on short notice, looking for a fight. Ultimate Fighter, Terrance Mitchell came in. And Terrance Mitchell came out, shot out of a cannon from Alaska. So you got to shoot that cannon pretty far from Alaska to Vegas. But he came out and he looked hot. He was going for the takedown. He's trying to throw the kitchen sink at Cameron Saaiman. You thought, hey, maybe this guy's got a big opportunity at cashing as a giant underdog. No way. Cameron Saaiman goes out there, gets the win. And did he have to foul his way to a win?
Maybe he didn't have to.
No. But that's been a big talking point for Cameron Saaiman. This guy, before he fought on Dana White's Contender Series last year, an UFC bantamweight champ, the story around Saaiman was, well, you know the K1 lineage, you know the kickboxing background that he has, but the biggest hallmark to his game is his grappling.
It is.
And that's how he's able to get it done. And he did it over there in his native South Africa. He gets the win on Contender Series, rallies after kind of a tough first round against one half of the Flying Wang Kim brothers, Josh Wang Kim, who has all of a sudden lost a few straight, and now you wonder if the Wang Kims are what the Wang Kims were. But for Saaiman, gets the win there, and he rallies back, and he drops Josh Wang Kim. You see that big right hand that he's able to land.
Really nice shot. Right
hand, left hook, beats Wang Kim, goes in against a short notice opponent. He was originally supposed to take on Ronnie Lawrence. Lawrence falls out. He gets Obi-Wan Shinobi the pillow, Stephen Kozlow, a legal knee. All sorts of illegal shots. Lose a point in that one. Then his next time out, he goes on to take on Mana Martinez. It's a majority decision win. Loses a point in that one as well. His last time out, he beats Michel. For Ceerod, we've been singing his praises for a long time.
He's a good fighter.
A Rufus sport guy. I'll throw up some of the pictures. Duke Rufus, coach, popping the top off, holding the mitts for his fighters. That's a look. He doesn't look as afraid as he did when CM Punk walked out for his first UFC fight. But for Rodriguez, you knew about Rodriguez because guys like Gerald Mearshart, Paul Felder, the Pettis brothers were always talking about him. He was a very young teenager when he got into the game of MMA. And what I found interesting was once Christian Rodriguez made it into the UFC, he went down to Fight Ready in Arizona to get ready. And he ends up losing to Jonathan Pierce, a guy who trains at Fight Ready. So he loses that matchup. He was decent in some of the scrambles, but again, when you're taking on a guy like Pierce, who's a lot bigger, up a weight class...
It could be like a Nasrat Hackpress, Marcin held type situation.
It was. It was just too much too soon in that one. Since then, Rodriguez, out of the takedowns of a guy in Joshua Weems, he gets a submission win there and a performance of the night bonus. And Rodriguez's last time out, he takes on a teenager, Raul Rosas Jr., and he beats him by decision. He just kind of wears through in the first round and wears him out in the second and the third round. Christian Rodriguez's biggest talking point in this fight, not just is this a giant prospect versus prospect fight, it is. I don't have to ask a question. Christian Rodriguez is like Melissa Dixon, is like Irina Alekseeva, who are all on this card. Make the weight. Like, Rodriguez had fights at 155. At 150, at 145, at 140. He's missed weight quite a few times. He missed weight on Contender Series, and even though he got the win, Dana White was like, listen, there's going to be more opportunities. You got to make the weight more often. And that was the same episode that Jake Hadley missed weight, and they still signed him from Contender Series. So for Rodriguez, he missed weight his last time out, 137.5, and we're making all these comparisons, and we haven't been doing baseball or basketball.
Oh, don't worry, just pass it
very
on.
often. And I'm not. I'm actually not in this one.
To.
Christian Rodriguez is in a bad category, though, to where you're the Kelvin Gastelum of the division. It's shit or get off the pot. Is it 135 or is it 145? Because he's not a giant guy at bantamweight here.
This is what concerns me about Cameron Saaiman, though. And we have brought up a lot of the positives because, hey, he's only 22 years old. He has a lot of positives to his game. But and I don't know if this is a thing in hockey, but it's a big thing in basketball. Where think of a guy like Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, or even like a Jalen Green who plays for Houston. The way you look at basketball is everybody scores 100 points, right? Like, you're just going to get to that number by the end of it. Everybody's pretty good. But in pursuit of those 100 points, you can have players who put up numbers but have a lot of mistakes associated with those numbers. And for Saaiman, yes, the grappling is good. Yes, the striking can be good. But we've seen him get clipped on his entries. We've seen him get hit by big shots just in general, really. And I do worry that until he is almost kind of forced to almost get a loss to be forced to go back and look at the drawing board to make some of those adjustments? Will he continue to get away with some of those mistakes? Because I do think offensively, there is a package that you can continue to build on, and maybe he will go from being an empty stats guy to like a Devin Booker, right? Like Devin Booker was a good player on a bad team, and now he's a great player on a good team. If Saaiman is able to continue to fight in this way and maybe shore up some of those defensive holes, I do think he has a reasonably high ceiling for only being one of these guys who came into the UFC being, 20 years old. Because how many people in his position have we seen? We just talked about Hal Rosas Jr., who lost to Rodriguez. Chase Hooper's another guy. Sage Northcutt, of course, is probably the poster boy for this category of you kind of get started a little bit too soon and you don't get any underhand tosses now.
I don't like it just because I've seen Saaiman get through those bad spots and continue to win.
If the chin's good now and you keep on getting hit by those shots, eventually you're going to get hit by one of those shots and not get up from it. Because we've seen a lot of guys not get knocked out until they do. Think about Drew Dober, who just rebounded this past weekend.
Cameron Saaiman is not a guy who's been knocked down, knocked out like Drew Dober, but Saaiman, like Drew Dober, well, one guy's 22, and it's not Dober. But he is a southpaw as well, and he can strike like that a little bit. Now, the volume in this fight, it favors Rodriguez. Sure. The boxing combinations mixed in with the leg kicks, that was a big hallmark of Rodriguez outside of the UFC, so I'm eager to see if we're able to see that kind of tight package that he can bring together, along with the good grappling game that we know that he has. And again, the one loss, he kind of got drug into the deep waters by a bigger guy on short notice. He is good with his jiu-jitsu, but when it does come down to it, we'll see if the takedown defense can be there for a guy like Rodriguez. Through 3 rounds, both these guys have pretty good cardio. I would still, not just off the last fight, but in general, give the edge to Rodriguez. But again, the weigh-ins, it's a big thing, even for both of these guys, but more so for the guy who's missed weight on multiple occasions, being Christian Rodriguez, a little bit of high school wrestling in his back pocket, and a snappy jab. When you look at the matchup, Ceerod is the slight favorite here. MSP hasn't faced a loss yet. Again, stance versus stance, we'll see how that plays out, because Ceerod, the longer fighter in terms of reach by the numbers. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, I'll let you set it because I don't really know where it's going to be. I think it's going to be close, though.
I'll put it 60% Rodriguez.
I'm going to say under. And
way under.
Whoa, 1,093 total votes, 80% with the underdog Cameron Saaiman, 60% by decision for the 20% that of Rodriguez, 76% by decision. So the fans see this going to a decision. The fans have the underdog, and that's why I like to do this. Some people slag this part of the segment, but I like it for this reason. And this is what I had to say against it. This is the kind of the positive, Matt. Rodriguez last time out against Raul Rosas Jr. in the thousands. He was a big underdog. Everybody counted him out, and he was able to get the win there. So now all of a sudden he's a favorite, but the fans don't have him to win. He hasn't been able to prove it enough. And for Cameron Saaiman, again, he was about a 2-1 dog when he took on Josh Wang Kim. That was the coming out party. So when you look at this one, I'm not surprised that the odds are close. I have a hard time making a pick on this fight, if you couldn't tell already, but the fans seem like they have their mind made up collectively.
So is this like the weekend update of FNP? For some people it's the highlight, for others just not for them. I ever so slightly have Christian Rodriguez, but I'm going to say this. I think Cameron is the higher ceiling between these two fighters. Like, if we ever see either fighter fighting in the top 15, I think it's probably more likely going to be Saaiman, and that's probably going to be if he wins this fight. But I do have Rodriguez. I think you're bringing it up. The leg kicks are going to be very important, and I think they're going to eliminate a lot of the positives from Cameron's game. I've been pretty high on Saaiman throughout his UFC tenure, but I do think stylistically, I ever so slightly favor Rodriguez, but I do love this fight, because this fight to me is like when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Because here's what it is. Nobody thought it was going to happen, like when Rodriguez beat Rosas Jr. the last time out. And how do you build off that, right? Where do you go after that? How do you make sure the guy maintains just some level of momentum? Well, you have him fight another high-level prospect, and if he beats that other prospect, well, now we strap a jetpack to his back. And if he loses to him, well, then Cameron then builds off the Rosas Jr. win. So I do think based off matchmaking, it's a good idea. Based off that, Brock Lesnar squashed John Cena his next time out, so maybe we see that out of Rodriguez. But I do have Christian Rodriguez in this fight.
Matt, I'm going to be interested because this goes against a point I made earlier, and it goes into my pick. For Cameron Saaiman, we've seen him tested. We've seen him withstand some punishment on the feet, on the ground, gets out of the bad positions, continues to win. For Cameron Saaiman, though, what happens if you kick that lead leg to the point where his striking is non-effective? He's not able to push off and get his takedowns, and that southpaw, big-time, shiny attribute that he has then becomes to a detriment. I'm still taking him in this fight. I'm going with Cameron Saaiman in the matchup. I think the wrestling can carry him to a win in this fight, but Matt, This is an ultra competitive matchup between a couple of big time prospects. The fans, they're going one way, the odds going the other way. So please let us know down below in the comments section who you have. Make sure you rate and review Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We get some big time fights on this card. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.